Frank's Red Hot is the perfect blend of flavor and heat, so you can use an entire bottle to make recipes like buffalo chicken dip or buffalo nachos, or even things that don't start with buffalo. Frank's Red Hot, I put that on everything.
Hello, Craig.
I hate LA. That's a short song tonight.
Yeah, well, that song lasted about as long as our chances of winning that game.
Yeah.
Maybe a little longer.
Our last 3 games against LA teams have been not great. This one was a different one entirely, but
yeah.
This is Podcast versus Everyone. I'm Craig Powers. This is episode 104. Wow,
104.
With me for all 104 of those episodes is Jeff Nusser.
Yeah, that's me.
How are we doing tonight, Jeff?
This is the best part of my night. Not gonna lie. It's I've been grading ferociously all day, and if anybody, I don't know how many teachers we have who listen to the show, but the teachers who do listen to the show will nod knowingly with this, that man, there's nothing that takes away your brain like grading. So if I sound sluggish at all tonight, if I wander off into areas where it's not really making a lot of sense, like right now when I'm struggling to find the right words, that is because the grading has literally sucked the brain out of my skull. Like, it's just, there is nothing that does it quite like that. And I graded for about 4 hours this afternoon, and I am, let's just say if we weren't recording right now, so it's like 9:15, right? Like about 9:15 Tuesday night. If we were not recording right now, I'd just go to bed, just crash out.
Well, I'll tell you something that may rival that in terms of brain drain.
Yep.
And that is deciding beforehand, because you did it when you were on vacation last year, is taking a tequila shot for every time the Sounders score a goal in the Western Conference Final. And it turns out they scored 3 goals just like last year, but the 3 goals happen to be in a 20-minute span.
Rapid succession.
And then you decide to just repeatedly watch the 20-minute span on repeat.
Did you take more shots while you were watching it on repeat?
I took one more victory shot, because that's what I did last year, and then that one was a little lighter pour, I'll say that.
Yeah.
But and then I decided that chugging a barley wine would be a good idea, for the grams.
That may have been a step too far, buddy.
But then it wasn't so much a hangover this morning; it was just a lack of sleep, because I stayed up till 1 o'clock in the morning, and then also, had to take my kid to daycare, whatever, and
whatever.
Yeah, so
I had to get up and do dad things. Like, listen, being a dad should never stop you from living your life. Like, that was a thing that that Sarah and I talked about, like, basically when we decided to have kids. I was like, listen, like, we know a lot of people who basically their kids run their lives, basically. And it's like, as soon as they became parents, they tried to fit their life into their kids. And we were like, as soon as we were talking about having kids, and we were, we were pregnant, and all, we talked about, how are we going to parent? Like, I think that's always a good idea, right? For the parents to talk to each other about how they want to do things. And I was just like, listen, like, yeah, I want to have kids and I want to have a family, but it's also important to me that I live my life. And I'm just like, I just had this really strong philosophy that, look, the kid can fit into your life. For the most part. I mean, there are things obviously where that doesn't really work and whatever, but it's for the most part, I'm like, yeah, like if we're going someplace, we'll bring the kids with us. If we're doing something, we'll have the kids do it with us. Like, I'm not going to be a prisoner to them or their schedule or their things that they need to do as much as possible. And obviously I make time for the kids and make their things a priority, but it's also like, you gotta do you a little bit too. And so yeah, I stayed up late. You stayed up late and watched the game, and then we'd get up and we do our parent thing in the morning, and sometimes we do it without a lot of sleep. So yeah, it was Last night was a heck of a lot of fun, man. For our listeners who don't know, by the way, the Sounders won the Western Conference Final. So they're off to MLS Cup, which is like, the Super Bowl of MLS, and they were down 2-0 in the 75th minute. So with 15 minutes to play in the game, they were down 2-0 and scored a goal in the 75th minute, scored a goal like in the 89th minute to tie it up, and then scored the game-winning goal in like the 92nd minute, so in extra time. To win it in regulation and advance to MLS Cup, where they have a chance to defend their championship, which was all very, very exciting to your two podcast hosts who really were very excited, but also a little pissed off that they weren't watching it together in Lumen Field. Craig?
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Because my 3-year-old is banging on her door upstairs, and I didn't want someone to freak out and like, what the hell's happening in your house? But yeah, so speaking of her, I did not.
I love it, dude. We were so like you were muted because she was screaming, and we're just rolling on with the show.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, there we go.
So yeah, but last night I was just like, I usually try to be maybe a little quieter when I'm watching sports and she's trying to go to bed, but I was just like, just let it flow.
Last night was not one of those, dude.
No,
that was
I let it flow, and so Amanda's like, go upstairs just to let your daughter know that you're okay, because you just like screaming for the last 15 minutes. So now she is screaming, and so you'll probably hear her on the podcast because she's taken to banging on her bedroom door when she wants something, and then if that fails, she just makes an absolute mess of her bedroom. So I'm thinking of just building her room into one of like those padded cells that you see in movies at mental health hospitals. So just so she has nothing to make a mess with, but. And she insists on sleeping on the floor anyway, so I don't even know why she has a bed.
Kids are amazing with their agency, man. When they start figuring out the things that they can control, that you can do nothing about, that's when parenting gets really fun, right? Like they start to realize, okay, these are the things that the parent can control, these are the things that the parent can do, and then these are the things that actually they can't do shit about. Like they can't, like when you're trying to potty train them, right? So this is you went through this, like they're just like finally they realize, oh, like I'm in control of this. Like they cannot make me go to the bathroom. Or when they're in their bedroom and you're trying to get them to go to sleep and they're like, I can do things like toss my bedroom because I'm mad. I can bang on a door. I can stick my hand in the shit in my diaper and wipe it all over the wall.
Yep.
I don't know. I think you had that happen. I've had that happen. Like, I'm just like, and at some point you just go, there are certain things you just have to ignore.
Reiterate my disdain for Bordeaux's butt paste. It has left a lasting impression on my house at this point.
I think when you told that story, I think I told this as well, but my son at one time, so my oldest son, when he was like, I don't know, 4, I think. So this is almost 10 years ago now. We left a jar of Vicks Vapor Rub in there, and he stuck his hand in it and put it in his hair. Oh. And so and then he fell asleep, and we he was one of those kids, he's just so hard to go to sleep. And so we would really just basically make him stay in his room, and he would essentially, throw a fit and bang on things and whatever. And then eventually he'd pass out.
Yeah, that's what's happening right now.
Yeah. And, sometimes you just kind of have to do that, right? Like you can't, if you go in there every time they cry, like you'll never sleep, they'll never sleep. Like at some point you just got to kind of let them go through it,
Yep.
and wear themselves out. And so, he finally stopped crying. He went to sleep, right? And we're watching TV in the other room, and we're finally like, okay, so we go check on him, and we look, and he's just sprawled out on the bed, and his hair is just sticking straight up. And we're like, oh my God, why is it? And he has really thick hair too. Like that was the other thing. Is so we're like, why is his hair sticking straight up? And then we see next to him in the bed is this empty jar of Vicks Vapor Rub, and we're just like, oh my God. Oh my God. And if you don't, if people have never used Vicks Vapor Rub, it's petroleum jelly. And so it's like,
You can't wash it out.
no, it's oil. Like it's oil. It's petroleum. And so the way we got it out was Dawn soap. Apparently, is the way to do it. It'll cut grease on your plates, and it'll also cut the oil in your kid's hair. So there you go. If you learn nothing else tonight from us, you learned how to get Vicks VapoRub out of the hair of a child.
So all of that was to delay the inevitable of what we have to do.
No, we don't. We don't have to talk about
this
it.
Garbage football game.
Fine.
This steaming pile of shit that we sat through for, well, particularly the first quarter of it.
I know.
And then just kind of toughed it out for the final three, final 3 quarters champions. Our Cougs.
Woohoo! I know. I thought Mark's
count.
post on Monday was fantastic about that. Like, it was just like the first time I read it, I didn't quite get it. I'm like, did he start to write a recap and then not see that I was writing the recap? And I was like trying to figure out what had happened. And then like I read it a second time and I went, oh my God, I'm really slow on a Monday morning. That was perfect.
But yeah, so right before not long before the game started, news came out that WSU was missing half their secondary, basically.
Bad place to be missing dudes against
in
USC.
particular, possibly their best defensive player. Brandon Jackson might be up there, and Jahad Woods might be up there too. But Jalen
Watson's at the top.
Yeah, but missing him when you're playing just an absolutely stacked wide receiver core and 2 guys on the outside that are just absolutely torched us. At least I wouldn't even say that like St. Brown was just at right place, right time most of the time. He only had 65 yards, only 9 yards a catch, but like it's like 4
Well, yeah,
touchdowns.
when your drives are starting on the opponent 10-yard line, like you're not going to get a lot of yards.
Well, yeah. So I mean, the way the game started was just, Jaden DeLora clearly, he's still a true freshman.
Yeah. Whatever delusion we had about he's not really a freshman. No, he's definitely a freshman.
So, let's talk about his okay. Well, first I'll talk about USC's strategy worked really well.
Yeah.
I don't know how many other teams will have the athletes to do it, but they did not give up anything over the top. Still WSU, probably could have gotten a couple. Jameer Calvin dropped a big pass, but other than that, they were giving up everything underneath 5-yard routes, those 5-yard outs that.
Yep.
Like that. If you just through 3 games, you can tell those little 5-yard outs are pretty standard piece of the offense. Like you see those over and over again. You have that guy drawing in supposed to be drawing in, hopefully, the defender, and then the other guy runs right by.
Yeah, the theory is at some point you can't, the team's not going to let you have 5-yard outs all day, right?
But when your quarterback's a little off and he's missing some of those 5-yard outs, so instead of getting 5 or 6, you're getting 0. That sets your offense back. And then, it really sucked because it really looked, McIntosh had a pretty good day in his limited carries. We had talked about this is a team they could run on, but when you're down 28-0, like right off the bat, it's like
there's only so much you can do there.
And plus when you're just like you're starting off the drive with a pass at 2nd and 10, it's really hard to it's really hard to run on 2nd and 10. It's just not an ideal running situation. It's like a down you probably should not run on.
Right.
Often,
if you get 4 yards, you're still third and long.
3rd and 6. So
Yeah.
So but Jaden, his first pick was just I think pure hubris. Like he did this kind of faded way. It was a nice play by number 15, who did not endear himself to Cougs throughout the rest of the game.
He thought he had man-to-man coverage. Like, that seemed pretty clear.
He thought he did. He didn't.
He thought he had man-to-man coverage. There was like a little shallow cross across the middle of the field.
And honestly, if he hits that pass, there's room.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember who was running the cross.
Yeah.
But if he hits the pass, but he doesn't, he kind of faded left and then tossed right and barely looked. I think he just was expecting the guy to be there.
Yeah.
What he didn't expect is 15 dropping back.
Yeah.
A little bit. Like he was just dropping back. He basically stopped his rush and just dropped
back.
Yeah,
he may have freelanced that.
Yeah.
I'm honestly not sure if he was legit supposed to be in that spot
thing,
or if he just saw the quarterback's eyes and thought, okay, he's trying to get rid of it, so I'm just going to get into a passing lane. I don't know, but incredibly athletic play by that douchebag.
And then Jaden had the insult to injury jump, got hurtled by the guy. Jaden, don't try to tackle me.
No, don't. I mean, good effort.
That's how you want him to try to tackle. Just go low and hope
go low.
Try
to take his legs out, but
he got hurtled.
Get hurtled over. Whoopsies.
And so that was. Obviously, after WSC started slow, they punted on their first. Well, they didn't punt on their first drive. That was Jaden's first drive. We probably, if this game had been closer, it would have been the very first thing we said. WSU kind of dinked and dunked. They were getting enough of the 5-yard outs to get down the field. They're getting a little. They had a nice screen to Harris. They had a nice 15-yard run from McIntosh, and he got another 8 or 9 on another run, and then they get to a 4th and 1, in that kind of in between zone. They're around the 30, I think, and very, very clear offside. It wasn't
really close.
It wasn't close, and unfortunately, Travell Harris also dropped the pass. It should have been a first down, but it shouldn't have mattered because the USC player WSU snapped the ball quicker to get that penalty because it should have been a penalty.
Yeah.
That probably took. WSU's probably getting points on that drive 3 or 7. Does that mean the defense is going to do better? I don't know. But it would have been nice to start with 3 or 7 versus nothing.
Versus nothing.
Because we saw how hard points were going to become by the rest of we can talk about the 2 scoring drives. We'll get to those. Those were slogs.
Yeah.
Definitely not the type of drives that are going to let you come make up a 28-point deficit. But yeah, so you start out that way, and then USC just went down. They started with Drake London, who's fucking massive dude, playing the slot. Basically he is what when we saw the Cassidy Woods size.
Yeah.
He's basically that.
That's what we were hoping for.
That's what we were hoping for right there. Just
Andre
a massive
Lintz.
Dude. Yeah, Andre. Oh God, deep pull. So you got this guy in the air raid that's the size of a tight end, but
runs like a wide receiver.
Runs like a wide receiver and just absolutely shredding us in the slot. And that first drive was mostly him, and then St. Brown got the touchdown. But yeah, so we just saw this impact of the secondary was massive. I think Jalen Watson has barely been thrown at this year, and that's
not even barely 0 targets.
Yeah,
apparently that's what Theo said. I don't know where he drew that stat from, but
because I don't know where to get those.
But I don't. But I certainly don't recall.
Might have been something a coach told him or something.
Yeah, I certainly don't recall seeing him.
You kind of forget he exists, and that's what you.
They just don't throw at him. They just throw to the other side.
That's like the Richard Sherman, Deion Sanders type corner.
People just throw to the other side.
Don't go over there, and it might mean the other guy is really bad, but it
could mean that.
But it does. I don't. Not necessarily. Obviously, Jalen Watson is far and away their best corner, and it would have been really nice because they're probably not going to see. Well, they only have 2 more games, but they're definitely not going to see a better wide receiving core this year. So, that was just rough. And they got abused. And I'll say at the start of the game, the defensive line wasn't really getting much pressure on Slovis. At least they were a little late, I would say. Often, they just weren't getting there fast enough. And so he was basically just throwing to wide open dudes. You kind of get you see tweets like Slovis is just on fire. It's like he's throwing to wide open
he's throwing
guys.
To dudes that are clear by 5 yards. I don't know. The the whole thing about this is we started out the year going, how much should we read into this, right? And what should we take away? Like this game is the epitome of just who cares.
Because I mean, when
I don't know how you take anything away from this. Like we already said, Jane Delore played like a freshman. Everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong. The entire second half, pretty much, and definitely the whole fourth quarter was like basically backups getting playing time.
Spring game.
Like, was USC really trying to score more points in the second half? I don't know. Like, I would think that they were, but also at the same time, I'm like,
I mean, they're still
maybe
throwing
they
the ball.
I don't know. Like,
they're still throwing the ball. I don't think Slovis is going to
they were
hold on
trying,
and intentionally
like,
get sacked. I don't know.
That's true, but it's just like, how much is this? How much is that? How much is the game state? How much is what the coaches are trying to do? Like, I mean, maybe USC was like, hey, let's work on this concept that we're not very good at and we need to get better at. Like, I mean, I don't know, to be honest. I mean, the game was so over. And there was really, I mean, I guess maybe they didn't watch the UCLA game last year with us, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, it just, the probability of a comeback was so tiny.
Well, yeah. I mean, their defense was making WSU earn every yard. So when they finally scored a touchdown at the end of the first half, it was a 7-minute drive. It took 7 minutes to go down the field.
Yeah.
And score. It took
and maybe that's why the air raid was so good over the years against them, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, if USC with all those athletes is like, hey, we're just going to patiently make you dunk it down the field. It's like, okay, sure. No problem. Right.
Yeah.
Like we can do that. Gardner Minshew did that for an entire game pretty much. And, damn near won the game down there a couple of years ago. So,
yeah. USC had the classic, like, Mike Leach era line where, with the net rushing yards, which include sack yards, they had 5 yards total rushing and 200, but so it's just, and luckily for them they didn't do kneel downs at the end of the game, because that's usually where WSU would end up in the negative,
right?
And then I've heard I think on Minshew did a game watch on Pac-12 Network of the Utah game with Rolo. And he talked about how, we'd have like 20 rushing yards, and then we'd do 4 5-yard kneel downs at the end of the game, or 3 5-yard kneel, whatever, take us 7-0.
Yeah.
But so that's beside the point. But I mean, it's funny, the entire game, like even when USC was trying, the run defense looked a hell of a lot better than I expected to be.
Yeah,
I think overall the defensive line played pretty well against what you can assume are high 3-star, 4-star, offensive line athletes.
Yeah.
So that was, if you're looking for encouragement, I think defensive line play. We got some young guys get some sacks here. Let me bring up the defensive.
I mean,
stats.
Brennan Jackson, has been a real bright spot.
Yeah, Brennan Jackson looked really good. You had guys who haven't really played. Quinn Roff. I didn't even know that dude. That was a name to me.
Walk on, I assume.
Yeah, so he had 1.5 TFLs in that second half when they were getting, basically turned into a spring game.
Yeah.
Like they were just working guys in. So yeah, the defensive line played well. It's just that if they didn't get to the quarterback, if they weren't stopping the run, there wasn't much out behind them. I don't want to drag the kids too much, but it just they were overmatched. Like you saw just St. Brown just overpower, I can't.
It was Derek Langford.
Derek Langford, just absolutely overpower him. And we saw, Taylor Vaughn's just torch Hicks a few times, and it just, they're just not. There's not there. This is just a tough matchup.
Athletically, we're not there, right?
And
Watson, who didn't play, and then Aiden Hector are probably our 2 legit athletes in the secondary, right? And Langford's not that. Isom's not that. And God bless them. Good kids, I'm sure, and fine young gentlemen who play hard and care. And by the way, that's a part that maybe we should, really emphasize. I feel like anyway, we should really emphasize is they did not fold. They kept fighting. They kept.
They got
scrapping.
some hits in, man. They got some hits in the second half. They hurt.
Really kept.
They hurt Slovis. They delivered some blows to some of the wide receivers and some of the running backs. Like Travion Brown had a nice hit on one of the wideouts.
Yep.
So like that's you like to see him do that. If USC is going to run away from you, at least give him some pain on the way out.
And we know what it looks like when that snowball starts rolling and it doesn't stop. And, part of it, I think, is, obviously this USC team, number 15 ranking or whatever, or otherwise, is not maybe, previous vintages, right? Like, Pete Carroll against Paul Wolf, that kind of deal. But also, you can't, on the one hand, say that, and then on the other hand, look at the first quarter and go, oh my God, they were so physically overmatched. Like, okay, either they were or they weren't. Well, they were physically overmatched, and whatever they did, especially for about the final 2.5 quarters, they played really well, and they came back and, hit USC back in the mouth. And, granted, the offense could never really get enough going to really truly threaten the lead, but the defense did not quit. They didn't just allow 69 points. And, I think...
they were allowed 287 yards.
Yeah, I think that's a thing.
5.4 yards of play.
Yeah, they deserve a ton of credit for that, especially for that 5.4 yards of play total. It was 7.9 yards of play after the first quarter, even with all those short fields and the goal line plays that they had. Like they were going at about 8 yards a pop, and so to end over the final 3 quarters to a point where the total came down to that number.
And again, it's not like USC was just keeping the ball on the ground to run the clock out.
Right.
They were throwing the ball. This is the air raid. They were doing exactly what WSU has done for years. Like it's the same thing.
Definitely in the third quarter they were. Fourth quarter they dialed it back a bit.
Fourth quarter
and
they barely had the ball.
We also had the ball for 2/3 of the fourth quarter.
Yeah, WSU had the ball for an 11.
Yeah, so let's talk about that,
drive.
man.
Let's talk about that drive. Okay, so Delora came out at the end of the third quarter, and Gunnar Cruz came in. I don't know if it was an injury or not. It would have made sense to bring on a different guy, honestly. And that
it seemed it was just hey, it's the fourth quarter, let's do.
Yeah, you have a bunch of young quarterbacks who have never seen time, so get them in there.
And it's a game that's over.
Yeah, so Gunnar Cruz comes in. I think he had to come in on a 2nd and 15, which sucked.
It was, which was weird.
Yeah, so that kind of hamstringed him. But the next time we see him come out, he runs a few more plays on the next drive, and then I think it was like a 3rd and 1. They bring Cameron Cooper in and have him run a QB keeper like right up the gut.
Yeah, it was on. Yes, it was a 3rd and 1. Okay, so Cruz had been in for the previous. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, 7, 8 plays, the first 8 plays of the drive he had been in, and then it's 3rd and 1.
They weren't even at the 8 plays, and they were not even at midfield yet.
Yeah, and that was almost 6 minutes.
Yeah.
It took almost 6 minutes for those first 8 plays, right? Going, okay, so first play, -1, +12, 5-yard penalty, +6, +3, +9, +7, +2 for 3rd and 1 at the 50.
So no plays over one play over 10 yards.
Yeah, 1 play over 10 yards. Gunnar Cruz to Lucas Bacon.
Yeah, that was at Lucas Bacon on the sideline.
Yep. Yeah. And then so Cooper comes in 3rd and 1, runs it up the middle for 2 yards,
which was very much a design play. You could tell.
Yeah.
So they're like, "Here you go, kid. Your first snap in major college football. Go for it, man."
Yeah. And then Cooper for 10 to Travell Harris. Clay Markoff, no gain. Cameron Cooper runs for a yard. Cameron Cooper throws a pass complete to Markoff for 7. And by the way, he absolutely murders some dude in the secondary, which is fantastic.
Number 22. I can't remember his name.
Okay. So then it's 4th and 2, and then back in comes Cruz.
On 4th down.
Yeah, and then he runs for 4 yards to get the first down. And then defensive pass interference.
Yeah, deep ball to Calvin, I think.
Yeah,
in the end zone.
In the corner. Yep. And then Cooper comes back in throws a pass to Travell Harris for 5 yards. Cruz comes back in.
The next play.
No
timeout.
No timeout. Just comes in, just shuttling them in. Look, I have seen I'm being dead serious when I say I've seen high schools do this, where they have two quarterbacks and they basically just shuttle them in and out with the play. Right. And so they can, on the sideline, they can coach them up in between plays, tell them exactly what they want on the next play, send them in for the play. Other guy comes out, they coach him up, and then, they just rotate them like that, tell them exactly what the play call is going to be, tell them exactly what they want. And they can kind of do a little more coaching. I don't know that it's, generally all that effective as a real deal practice, but I have no doubt that's what was going on here on this drive. Was just, hey, it's this long drive. It ends up being 16 plays, 93 yards, 10 minutes and 38 seconds, which is absolutely bizarre. And but it's like, but once they started kind of rotating, like they were rotating every like 4 or 5 plays, and all of a sudden it was like every couple plays, and I'm sure that that's what it was. They were, you come out, coach them up on what they did, send them back in, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's how you would run a practice. Yeah. Basically. So
I mean, that's why I tweeted something like, remember guys, this is just a fancy spring game against a different opponent. And so it was more tongue in cheek just because of the way, it's not like the nature of these games are spring games. I know the kids care about them a lot. And so and the coaches do, and the fans do. So, but still, like, they were treating it like a spring game, like, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so it was interesting, you're getting blown out. At least they were able to keep the chains moving, so they were able to do that. Yeah. They were just barely churning them out, just getting enough. And hey, maybe it managed to score a bit. If maybe coaches generally worry about that probably more than they should. But 38-13 obviously looks a lot better when it was 28-0 after one quarter.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was fascinating to watch, man. And I'll say, like, they all kind of do different stuff. Like, Gunnar and Cameron both obviously have, like, I think people immediately jump on, like, they have nicer looking throwing motions than Jaden does. I think that's pretty obvious. Yeah. Gunnar is fucking huge. Like, we knew he was, but Jesus, that dude is huge.
He's a big dude.
Yeah. Cameron looked a little more athletic than I expected.
Yeah. He moves well.
It looks like he really likes throwing on the run.
Yeah.
He's got a
really nice, easy throwing motion when he's moving.
Yeah.
He threw whichever one went for I think it was the first throw, 10 yards to Travell, after he got the first down. He was rolling to his left on that one. Just a really nice dart to Travell. Really nice throw.
Yeah, it's funny. In Gunnar's was supposed to have the big arm, but like he kind of short armed his first one.
I don't know if he was nervous or the ball was slippery or what. That looked awful though.
I don't know.
Yeah,
that was weird.
It looked terrible.
But then he did have some other throws later that definitely showed off his arm strength. Yeah. So I think that's there. And I don't know. Like I feel like all those guys have something. It seems like. Now, like, looking at that, they obviously, the superlatives attached to Jaden Delore are why he was chosen, the running ability, and especially installing the new offense, and he can just kind of run some RPO, which is much simpler to run, obviously, because it's all reaction, and so maybe, that won him, and truthfully, he was really good in the first 2 games. He was not good in this game. He's a freshman quarterback. Yeah, he's
oh god, that second interception. The first one was like
that was
whatever.
A snowball thing, right?
First one was like whatever. Second one was I'm a freshman. I'm down, 2 touchdowns on the road to USC, and I am, god damn it, I'm going to make a play.
I mean, I don't know what play he's trying to make. It's a 2-yard route, and he's like chucking the ball as hard as he can at
nobody. I mean, it was Lucas Bacon.
It was Lucas Bacon, but he was bracketed. Like he had like there was someone who intercepted the ball, and then there was someone in the middle right next to him. Yeah. Like it was just not. That was just very much a mental mistake.
It was a horrible decision. It was a horrible decision. He was, listen. You can never say definitively what a guy's thinking, but it seemed pretty obvious that he was really, really pressing, that he was really trying to make a play. And from the very beginning of the year, we were like, okay, well, this is what freshmen do. And, they try to make a play and they're not very composed and da-da-da. And then, of course, through 2 weeks, we were like, shit, like he's pretty composed. Like he's not, he made a couple, he made a bonehead throw against Oregon State, trying to get over the top and throwing in double coverage. You're like, okay, that's a bad decision. But you didn't really see the loss of composure. And we saw a loss of composure on Sunday. Like that, he just sort of lost it for a sec.
And we've talked about it kind of, you and I, like personally talked about it kind of similar with Russell Wilson. Particularly, like, there was a point in the season he was throwing a lot of interceptions, and then he's kind of like over-adjusted at this point. But, but when you feel like every time you don't move the ball, the defense is giving up a touchdown. You can tell in a quarterback's mind, they're like, I have to make plays every single time. I have to score a touchdown. Yeah. And so, especially when you're 18, it's your third start ever. Like this is, it's going to be harder to stamp. We watch it impact Russell Wilson, who's a 32-year-old veteran NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely going to impact an 18-year-old. This game is just whatever. The season is just whatever. But like, they didn't play for 3 weeks, and they definitely are, they were playing down like like half of a entire position group, which was, kind of the most important position group in this particular game. Playing the air raid with all those receivers. So yeah, it's like whatever. I mean, it sucks. Like it sucks to watch. I mean, because it's just you have these nightmares, these flashbacks. I tweeted something. I researched it to make sure I was right, but I just remembered off the top of my head. Rolovich now joins company as 3 of the last 4 WSU coaches have fell behind to USC 35-0 in the first half at some point. Leach only got to 24-0. So
good job.
Getting whooped by USC is a time-honored tradition at WSU. Let's hope that Rolovich is much more Leach and much less Doba and Wolf, of course.
When I was in school, so this is 95 to 99. Like beating USC was like a never thing. Yeah. Like that was like, it's sort of like us now with like today beating Washington is like, yeah, that's never going to happen. That's the way it was with USC for, 80 years or whatever. Like it was, if we beat USC, it was crazy. And then beating USC in Los Angeles was like a no way. Like that, like you think beating them in Pullman's something, beat them in Los Angeles, that's like not a chance. When we beat them down there in 97, kind of at the beginning of that Rose Bowl run, it was just like, holy shit, we beat USC in Los Angeles? Like, wow, this team might really be legit. Like it was that big of a deal. Now, obviously we've had some since then. You were at one of them, which was not quite as glorious as it wasn't exactly a vintage USC team. But I think there's a little, I think your point is well taken that, there's a little bit of historical like context maybe needed on this. And, USC is a team that will always have better athletes no matter what, will always have better athletes than us. If they're coached reasonably well, they're going to have an advantage. I don't think either one of us thinks a whole heck of a lot of Clay Helton, but, but I also don't think he's horrendous.
Yeah, he's not like destroying things.
Yeah, he's not just
USC
like
is still like pretty good. They're just not. They're not like Pete Carroll level good. They're
right, and maybe that's unfair. I don't know. Maybe that's no longer. Maybe it's not fair to compare him to Pete Carroll and John Robinson and whatever. That maybe it's better to say maybe those days have passed. Obviously, USC wouldn't say that if you ask them.
No,
because they're douchey enough to think that they're just their rightful place is to be undefeated every year. But maybe to the rest of us who are a little bit more realistic, maybe that era's passed for them. I don't know. So
yeah.
But they're always going to be good. They're always going to have athletes. They're always going to have better athletes than we do. And so then it's just a matter of how well we execute. And number one, we didn't execute well. And number two, as we said again and again, there were tons of guys missing. And it wasn't just the guys in the secondary. I mean, it's the stuff that happened when the first game got canceled, when the Stanford game got canceled, and we started digging into the roster and being like, okay, how do you get to a point where a game gets canceled? And you start seeing really quickly how that happens when you got a whole bunch of guys, half dozen guys or 8 guys or whatever it was who went to the transfer portal, and then you got injuries, and then you got the COVID, and then it's like all of a sudden, like you look in the second half of this game. And you're like, oh, yeah, I can see how we ended up without enough guys to play because of some of the guys who were playing, right? Like the backups were, you mentioned that I've already forgotten his name, the defensive end, like Rolf.
Yeah,
Rolf.
Quinn Rolf.
Quinn Rolf. Sorry, Quinn. I know. I'm sure you're a wonderful young man. I apologize. No insult intended. But it's also like I've never heard of you before. And, you were getting a ton of run there in the last quarter and a half. So it just brings you back to it's all bullshit. Do not try to take too much away from it. Do not try to read too much into it. I'm sort of consistently amazed at the seriousness with which people are taking this season. Not just us, like the whole thing with Ohio State right now and the CFP and all that. And I'm just like, yo, this whole thing is just entirely stupid. It makes no sense. Everybody's making up the rules as they go along. I just don't know that there's anything that you take away from this other than whatever, individual evaluations you want to make. And that's really what coaches probably should be doing too. And I don't know, I don't know how Rolovich goes about it these last couple games. If he pivots to, straight, evaluation mode or what they do. I mean, at this point, I don't want to see Max Borghi. Like, I don't want to see him. I don't want to, sit it out, buddy. Just, I do not need you breaking your back for 2 absolutely, totally, 100%, completely, totally meaningless games. Like, just don't do it. Let's get through these last couple of weeks. Let's see what we got, and then let's think about next season.
Well, I will say,
I know that's not how coaches think.
Yeah, these are competitors, and they're sitting at 1-2 now. And if they win those last 2 games, they're 3-2, and they have a winning record. And I'm sure that is on their mind. We saw them kind of, go into teaching mode when they got down 28-0, but new game, against Cal this week, they're going to be back in the mindset of we can win this game, we can get back to 2-2, coming up with whoever we're going to play on the 19th, and so that's I'm sure that's their mindset. So I try to keep that in mind, that they care, so we don't try to. It's the players are still, breaking their bodies and they're still working their asses off. So
which is maybe a whole nother conversation about whether they should be doing that. Yeah. But I'm trying not to take it too seriously and just trying to be like, if they win, it's fun. It's great. If they lose, especially if they lose like this, like just whatever, man, it's all bullshit.
Yeah. That was great. No, it wasn't, not at all. But yeah, so, before we go to break and we'll talk about basketball after the break, I do have an update. I got a nice text from Amanda that said, she's been quiet. I'm kind of worried that she just knocked herself out. So that's where we're at with her going to sleep. We automatically assume she knocked herself out versus laid down and went to sleep. So
actually went to sleep.
But yeah, so when we come back from the break, we will talk about basketball. Big rivalry match coming up this week, or game. I've watched too much soccer lately. Rivalry game coming up this week. And let's do a commercial.
And we're back.
All right. So, we always got to disappoint them by actually talking about beer when we come back. So, Jeff, what are you drinking?
I am having, following up on last week's show, I'm having another one of the pastry stouts here. That's not a stout, it's a porter. Yeah, this one's a porter. But a pastry-flavored P51 porter by Wingman. This is the Blueberry Vanilla P51 Porter, and the moment that I popped the top, I was like, whoa, so much blueberry aroma. And then I started drinking it, and I'm like, it's very weird, and I kind of don't like it.
Yeah.
So it's all right, but it's I'm not getting. It's very weird. Like, I'm not getting any of the flavors really distinctly. It kind of feels like, I don't know, man. It kind of feels like somebody put it all in a blender, and like, you know what I mean? Like, Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Like, it just kind of tastes like all of it, but none of it all at the same time is kind of what it tastes like. So, good effort, Wingman. I just don't care for it.
Yeah.
What about you?
I went up to, I used, now that we have B in preschool, so I get some kind of days when I don't have a child, so I had ordered some beer online at Holy Mountain, so I went up to Seattle to pick it up. I got to have they have like reservations, this like outdoor beer garden, which was not the best day for that, let me tell you, but I had a couple little pours. That was interesting. I haven't had a beer at Holy Mountain in a very long time, obviously.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really. It was like having it outside in the parking lot.
Right.
Actually.
They got it right out front there on whatever 15th or whatever that is out front.
Yeah, and I think it turns into 15th eventually. I think it's like Elliott or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was nice. And I picked up a couple 4-packs of IPAs and then some King's Head barrel-aged double oat brown ale with hazelnut and vanilla. But right now I'm drinking one of the IPAs. It is Oracular Dreams, like oracle, or oracular, like so an oracular dream is like a vision, but it's a vision you have while you're sleeping. That is, I looked up that definition. On the bottom of the can is stamped "Create Distance." So that was fun. But yeah, it's just a 7% hazy IPA. Honestly, like it's good. Holy Mountain, generally makes good beers. But it's not like it's a hazy IPA. It tastes like a lot of hazy IPAs. It's good. It's easy to drink. It's tasty. It's 7%, pretty solid. Tastes like a Holy Mountain IPA. Pretty good stuff. It's got kind of some tropical aromatics, and then it's got low bitterness. Got all those qualities in a hazy IPA that you would expect. So awesome. It's very good. But nothing that is like I wasn't going out of my way to buy it, but I was already buying the other beers that I was going out of my way to buy, and I thought I could get a couple 4-packs of these because my cold beer fridge is running low, so I thought maybe I'd restack that up. But yeah, so Holy Mountain, check it out.
Yeah. If
right.
you know, you know.
If you know, you know. So yeah, that's beer talk. You can stop hitting skip now. We're done talking about beer.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's talk about our other favorite thing, basketball.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we don't have a game to talk about because the COVID.
Damn it.
The COVID hit. I will say, talking to someone on the team, that it seems that everyone's doing okay. So if anyone contracted it, or maybe they were exposed or whatever, we don't know the details.
Yeah, we still don't know.
Yeah, so
we still don't know exactly what happened.
As far as we know, everyone is safe and good and okay, and not having any dramatic impacts at this point. So
Which is what's important.
And it must have, I think they expected to be out longer, but they were already going ahead with the Idaho game, which will be today if you're listening to it. Tomorrow, whatever. I have to write a preview. Goddammit.
Yeah.
But
which should tell you, by the way, that like whatever happened was some sort of last minute thing where they maybe didn't know the extent of what was happening, and they just had no choice but to postpone that first game until they kind of got it all. Yeah. Sorted out.
And the women's team also is suspended.
Oh, my gosh. They still haven't played their first game.
Yeah.
and they're not going to until the weekend, I think.
Yeah.
I think so. They had 2 games this week rescheduled for this week, and those got canceled again or postponed again. And I think the 11th is when they're finally going to play their first game. So yeah, it's rough. I don't know. Maybe there was some sort of close contact from there, because we know athletes hang out. Maybe not. I don't know, but it's all speculation.
I think there's definitely some intermingling between the basketball teams in particular.
Yeah. I mean, they're probably being told to stay away from each other at this point, but obviously we know that college kids don't always make they're not always good at risk assessment.
What's that we were talking about with my toddler and agency? Well, a college kid ain't no different. So
yeah, that is so true. That is so true. And it's like, you tell a pro football player, hey, you better do this, and a pro football player goes, wow,
you better be in bed by 10, and you better.
I have millions of dollars on the line. College football player, hey, you better do this thing. It's like, or what? It's like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
I'll be fine. We'll be fine. But listen, we keep talking about COVID, like, okay, well, we've become numb to it, right?
Very much.
And
even though it's pretty much as bad as it's ever been, or worse. So.
And it was only a couple months ago that you and I were like, shame. We should be talking about how Trevor Lawrence is, hopefully he's safe and healthy. And here we are, a couple months later, we're like, oh yeah, there's another COVID outbreak. I mean, it's hard to remember sometimes how big of a deal it is. And that, look, there are a range of results in between getting sick, being symptomatic, and being asymptomatic. And then there's so for example, today, Al Blades Jr., Seahawks fans might remember the name Blades, right? Brian Blades. This would be his nephew, who plays at Miami. And he got COVID, and he is now going to sit out the rest of the season because he has myocarditis now. So it's like, granted, they seem to have determined that the myocarditis, which is the heart issue that can be associated with COVID, is pretty rare in occurrence, but it still happens, and these things still happen, and people still have after effects. And even if most college kids are going to be asymptomatic, there's still a chance they're not just going to be asymptomatic, and there is a chance that that their body doesn't recover from it as quickly as everybody would like to think that it should. So I don't know. I mean, I'm just like, I can't, when the thing came down about the game in Colorado, we were talking with somebody close to the program, and we were like, basically, hey, is everybody okay? Like, that's what matters. And it sounded like everybody's all right. So, game on with Idaho, right?
Yeah, the longest running rivalry west of the Mississippi, in terms of continuous rivalry.
Yeah, that would have been a shame for that to end. We don't want that.
I know, guy, really good. Yeah. But Idaho sucks. If we want to get into the preview, they are very bad. This is not a team they should ever lose to. I'll be as dramatic as you want on that. This is not even close to the level of the teams that beat Ernie Kent. This is a very, very bad team. This is truly one of the worst teams in college basketball. I think we've talked about it before on the podcast. The Big Sky is doing a thing where you basically travel to a team, or they travel to you, and they play 2 games. So they've played 2 games so far, and both were against Sacramento State. Sacramento State, in terms of KenPom rankings, is roughly the same as Texas Southern, and they beat them pretty soundly twice in a row down there on Thursday and Saturday. So pretty bad. Idaho was not good last year. And then they also lost.
They were 323 last year, and they're actually worse.
Yeah, because they actually lost their far and away best player, Trevon Allen, to a senior, and then they also lost their next best player, Markel Frazier, to a transfer. I think he's at like an NAI school now, so I don't know what happened there. They lost their point guard, who truthfully might have been addition by subtraction because he wasn't very good, Keyshawn Dixon, but they definitely lost a lot of minutes. I mean, their minute continuity is roughly the same as ours, but but that's the same number of players playing the same minutes as last year is what that means. It's a new stat on KenPom. It's fun. But yeah, so you take away, like, Trevon Allen was a legitimately good player, and he was taking 37% of the shots, which was the 8th most of any player when he was on the floor in the country. Like, so they were heavily, heavily dependent on him. And now they have guys that were basically role players last year stepping into much, much bigger roles. Guys like Scott Blackney, who was he was about a 17% usage guy this last year. Now he's a 27.5% usage through 2 games. That you get guy, and he was decent. I do wonder, although he is a 6'8" center, so I'm wondering if maybe they're in Sacramento State's kind of a small team. So I don't know if this was it's hard when they've played 2 games with both the same team. Some of these player things could be almost as much about a matchup as they are about anything.
Right.
So maybe Blackney isn't the center of their offense. Probably be more likely a guy like Gabe Quinnett, because you can kind of tell by the minutes. He's like the point guard distributor guy. So we'll probably see him shoot a lot. But really, none of these guys are great. They're small. Like I said, 6'8" center. They do have a 6'10" guy and a 6'11" guy. They didn't play very much. Well, the 6'10" guy played quite a bit against Sacramento State. So he's big, but it doesn't seem to be very involved in the offense. But he at least can grab rebounds and stuff. But I mean, overall, they're just kind of talent. They've had a talent drain off of an already bad team, and that's where they're at. They're an even worse team this year. This is not a team that WSU should lose to at all.
No. It's like the way that program has fallen off is like really stunning.
Yeah.
And look, I mean, I think our fans, think of Idaho as a team we should beat, which is true. We should always beat Idaho, right? At everything, all the time, forever and ever, right? I mean, that's, I remember when Mike Price lost to Idaho in, 2000, what was it, like 2000, 2001, something like that. Or maybe it was 99, something like that. Anyway. And I remember being just like apoplectic about it. And this is, 2 years off of, or 3 years off of Mike Price taking us to a Rose Bowl. And right. I'm just like, I'm running around, fire Mike Price. You cannot lose to Idaho ever at anything, and like, I'm working at CBS Sportsline at the time. My boss, Don Borst, some of our older listeners who've been in the Tacoma area might remember Don. And Don looks at me and he's just like, Nooser. And I'm like, what? And he goes, Mike Price took you to a Rose Bowl. Like, come on, man. He was just giving me the old know your place speech is basically what he was doing. And I was like, come on. But that's kind of our attitude, right? Is like, we should be forever and ever better than Idaho. A lot of years, that was like, with basketball, it was like, Idaho's respectable, man.
I mean,
they're like a 150 to 200 KenPom type team. Like, that's a decent team. That's
they had a lot of
kind of where we are,
They had a lot of solid teams under Verlin.
Yeah.
And then his last year,
and then it just
totally
went
tanked.
off a cliff.
Like, they peaked at 126 in KenPom in 2018, which is WSU
that's
hasn't.
A pretty good team.
WSU, that's about where they ended up last year.
Yeah.
Like, and so that, they went 22-9 in the Big Sky. They were very good, 14-4. I mean, 22-9, 14-4 in conference. They were doing things, and then the next year, they were literally 348 out of like 350.
They were beset by there were all sorts of off-court issues. Verlaine ends up getting fired. And that was only marginally related to the performance on the court. I mean, they just went in the toilet, and then the new coach, Zach Claus, has obviously not been able to do much. And he, of course, walked into a really terrible situation because first of all, he's taking over for Verlin. And I don't remember either. Did they have some self-imposed sanctions as well? Because of that?
That sounds familiar.
So they may have lost
scholarships
too.
126, like they went from 126 to 348. They lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 senior rotation players off of that team. And so they were going to be bad regardless. And then, of course, there was other stuff. And so, yeah, they have completely fallen off.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, these players play against each other all the time.
Yeah. Probably not so much right now, but
yeah, probably less now. But like, they're playing at the rec centers. They're playing close scrimmages. They're playing. They're hooping against each other a lot. There's a little bit of a rivalry there. But at this point, like, the WSU team should be so far above the Idaho team that this is. There's
should be a walkover.
Yeah, it should be a walkover. Again, when we say that, like, Ken Pom predicts it to be a 17-point win. So if
that's a lot.
That's a lot on Ken Pom.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's
because that's an average.
Yeah, that's the average.
That's the average of the simulations.
Yeah, so there's 50% of the simulations are more than that, 50% or less. So yeah, it could be, so if I don't know, I mean, you want to see them win by more because you want to see improvement with the team and stuff. But yeah, if it is only a 17-point win, don't freak out. But also just if it's a 2-point win, maybe freak out. Like, I don't know if we're a loss or whatever.
Yeah, if we're trailing at halftime again, I might start freaking out a little.
Yeah. So this is not a good team.
No, they're bad at everything, man.
They literally are bad,
except for 3-point shooting.
Yeah. But that's after 2 games.
Yes.
That's who knows.
Yes, it is.
Who knows if they're actually good at that,
I mean, the big thing is the turnover percentage. I mean, that's always going to be the first thing I look at with an opponent.
They also didn't shoot very many threes. So
no.
But yeah, turnover percentage, yikes.
That's always the first thing I'm going to with us and our defense. I'm always going to look at the opponent's turnover percentage on offense and be like, if they're turnover prone, I'm going to be like, we got them. Right? Like that's always, because if a team is turnover prone on offense, the chances of them not turning it over a bunch against us are almost none.
And I will say Sacramento State, the last couple years under Brian Katz, as really they've become a team that forces a lot of turnovers. So you combine that with Idaho, who I don't know who's even playing point guard for them at this point. So it's a challenge. That it's new guys. They have a senior and a freshman who are splitting the minutes of point guard, and so I don't know. That's just they should be able to force turnovers. They should be able they should dominate the glass against this team.
Here's something funny about Idaho last season, which should give you a sense of how far the program has fallen. So they were ranked 323, which again is higher than what they were ranked right now. They won,
and higher than the year before.
Yeah, and they won 8 games. Excuse me, they won 8 games. And here's the rankings of first of all, they beat Evergreen State.
Which counted as an actual win on their record.
By
6 points.
By 6 points. Although they did beat Walla Walla by 50, so good job on that.
Suck it, Walla Walla.
Beat VMI by 1. Beat Cal State Bakersfield by 6. Really nice win against Portland State. Won by 11 there. And then also won by 14 against Sacramento State. 3-point win over Eastern, and then a 4-point win over Idaho State before losing in the Big Sky tournament. So, they're bad, man. They're bad, and we should kill them. And it's going to be disappointing if we don't.
You really hope for a get right game for the offense, honestly, because
that's what you're hoping.
There
for.
should be easy shots, and
they put the one thing they don't do is put people on the line. But as we know from watching Ernie Kent's defense, if your defense is horrible and you're not putting anybody on the line, that really just means you're barely trying. Is what that really means.
That just means they're too open.
They are just like layups without anybody near them is what that is. So
IDAHO.
Yeah.
Idaho,
go.
No. Sorry, I don't want to just bag on Idaho, but honestly,
but we just did.
They're so bad. I cannot find a positive. Scott Blackney did pretty well against Sacramento State. He was also bigger than most every one of Sacramento State's players. He is, he's got that wider body, but he's 6'8" center. So They do have a 6'10", 260 center. So maybe him and Vova can bang on each other a little bit. I don't know.
And by the way, we just don't know who's going to play or not going to play in the game, right? I mean, that's the other thing. We're coming off a COVID thing. We don't know who's going to play and who's not going to play. It does sound like Tony Miller's situation is not good. And that came from Kyle Smith in his press conference. So sounds like that's not great. But other than that, I mean, we don't know. We don't know, and they're probably not going to tell us. So,
I mean, I don't think they'll ever tell you which if any players have COVID or anything. I don't think
no,
they'll ever tell you
which
that.
is I don't know. I don't know if that's good. I don't know. I don't know if I have really strong feelings about that, but whatever.
I do think so. We're like looking. We're just like kind of cursory looking at what guys have done with 2 games. I'd be funny thinking like a reverse Idaho, like the if there was a counterpart of ours that existed as an Idaho fan, they're looking at like Noah Williams 50% on threes so far this year.
Yeah,
you gotta make sure not to leave that guy open.
Make sure and find that guy.
So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, well, hopefully they kill him.
Yeah, hopefully, and then that starts a stretch. We'll talk about this more, but Portland State. On Sunday, these are all home games. That's another a 300-plus team. The toughest in the stretch will be Montana State, but they do get 5 days off before that game, so maybe that helps. And other than that, I'd say 4 of the next 5 should be walkovers. The Montana State I could see being a little tougher. But,
but hey, maybe we'll pick up some more top 25 votes.
Yeah.
I do love that people are like, look at them, they got top 25 votes, and I'm like, it was one guy. One weirdo who ranked him number 23.
You can't ignore 3 wins over Texas Southern, Eastern Washington, Oregon State.
Yeah,
just powerhouses. Yeah, just taking them down.
Narrow wins.
Yeah,
whatever. I don't know. It's nice, I guess. It's neato.
Hey, it'd be nice to get through these next 5 and be 8-0 going into a really tough opening weekend in Pac-12 play.
Yep, that'd be nice. And I don't know where or if they're going to squeeze in the Colorado game.
Yeah,
I'm honestly not sure. I was looking at the schedules, and to be truthful, the only place where there's any kind of a break is Christmas.
Yeah.
So, and I think this is probably what's most likely is they just try to squeeze it in if both teams have, a mutual cancellation, because those are going to happen. I think we know from watching football that that is definitely going to happen. Entire weekends are going to be wiped out for teams. We know this is going to happen.
I will say, so they both play rivalry. I wonder if the whole Pac-12 is doing this. They both have the rivalry games on Saturday, March 6th, and both only play on Saturday previously. So they have a week in between the last week of the season. So they might throw it in there. So who knows? Yeah.
So it probably won't be soon. It probably won't be in December, unless for some reason they wanted to forego Christmas. But I just I can't imagine that. I can't imagine. I mean, this is rough enough as it is on these guys. They ask a lot out of them, and I don't think taking away Christmas is a thing that they. I don't think that's a thing they probably should be doing.
Yeah. All right, basketball. Check it out. I'm sure it's on Pac-12 Network tomorrow.
I'm sure it is, like all of them.
No, it's on Big Fox. It's a primetime game. I'm just kidding. But it's the
Battle of the Palouse, man.
What time is the
Who doesn't want to see that?
9 p.m.
I mean, heck, North Carolina and Duke get a nationally televised game, and they're only 8 miles apart. So.
Yeah, what's the difference? It's the same thing. It's the same rivalry.
Our uniforms look better.
Yeah. Idaho's got that black and gold going for them. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think so. Let's see. Okay, signing day's a week away.
Yeah.
Yay. Woo.
Yeah. All right.
I don't know, man. Not much has changed. I mean, we talked about that.
There was one.
We talked about that a couple weeks ago. How we were losing a few kids, but
then they've had one flip from Fresno State, a wide receiver.
So the flip from Fresno State on the wide receiver came within a week or two of the decommit from a wide receiver.
Yeah.
And they haven't been really picking up any other commits lately, which I think we talked about this before, but in case we didn't, I'm starting to think that they're not planning on handing out all 25 scholarships for this class. And maybe that's, I would guess that it just has to do with who might be coming back as seniors. The NCAA has given no indication that they're going to let teams go over 85.
And I got to think they'll probably give a guy like Aiden Hector a scholarship next year.
Yes. So you're going to have that. You're going to probably have some other walk-ons.
Maybe Lucas Bacon as well.
And they probably don't know who's coming back. That's probably part of the issue is they want to keep some of those scholarships kind of tucked in their pocket because the last thing you want to do is be chasing off some of these seniors, right? You just that would be an exceedingly bad look to be like, hey, thanks for everything. Thanks for putting up with COVID.
Can you leave?
We don't really have a spot for you anymore. I don't know. I'm trying to think of someone who on Sunday who didn't play very well, like Derek Langford. Hey, thanks, buddy. But you're not really in our future plans. So maybe find somewhere else to play next year. I don't know. There will be some guys who leave because that's just what happens, but I'm sure they're going to probably have to treat it pretty delicately. And they probably at this point don't know who those guys are, because things are fluid, things change. I guarantee you they didn't think Will Rogers was transferring.
Yeah.
And then away he goes. And, they didn't come into the season thinking Lamont McDougal was going to transfer. And, so there's all these guys that, they probably didn't think were going to transfer that they probably were counting on, so who knows what happens between now and the end of the year. My guess is they're probably going to sign, 15 guys or so, 17 guys or so next week. And then after that, maybe they just kind of manage it with, okay, who goes, who stays. The late signing day is not until February. So, who knows?
Who
Gives
knows?
them a couple months to sort it out.
Cruton, man.
Yeah. But hey, really, really, really excited about that new receiver who I know nothing about, but I'm sure he's awesome.
Yeah. Tons of upside.
Yeah.
Tons of intangibles.
Diamond in the rough.
That's
what I heard.
Just the next insert.
He's not from Washington though, so I don't know if he's going to care.
He's not going to
the Apple Cup.
He might not care about the Apple Cup. So,
he does have great hair. I did notice that. I saw a picture.
Yeah, Joshua Meredith
excellent.
is his name, by the way.
There we go. Joshua Meredith, excellent hair. I wish my hair. It's like when every time I watch Isaac Bonton play, and I'm just jealous.
He is from Mater Dei, which is like a football factory of a high school.
So that's always nice.
Yeah. So he plays against other good high school football players.
That's good, I guess.
Yeah.
Hooray! So yeah, I just we'll see what happens. We'll see how it shakes out. It's all very strange, very weird times. But if you're thinking we need big reinforcements for next year, I don't think they're coming in this recruiting class, but you never know.
And also, suck it, Fresno State.
Yeah.
Suck it.
Yeah, suck it. School that used to be coached by Jeff Tedford.
Suck it, Courtney Morgan, lead recruiter at Fresno State on according to 247. Andre Allen owned you.
Yeah, that's right. That is right.
Oh, recruiting.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything else?
No, probably not. Hey, is this what time? What time we got here? Oh,
1:15.
Nice.
We're doing good.
I'm proud of us. When the football game's not that interesting, we still talked about it for like 35 minutes. But give us a subscribe if you haven't done that yet. Make sure you listen to every podcast so it keeps downloading. Give us a 5-star review. That's great. Write something nice. Give us a recommendation. Follow Jeff on Twitter at Pod versus Everyone. Pod Pod VS everyone. And then me on Twitter at the Craig Powers. For all your Sounders, Seahawks.
I was going to say, advance warning, it's going to be lots of Sounders for the next few days.
Yeah. And then, Seahawks, Cougs. There's always a lot of Cougs.
Yeah.
Borussia Dortmund, Tottenham, all that stuff. Just depending, as long as
Depends on the day of the week.
Depends on the day of the week.
And what time of day it is.
Yeah, exactly. Earlier
follow us in the morning for soccer. Follow us at night for football.
Yeah, there you go. All right. So, any other call-outs? No, I don't think. I think we're good.
That's it, man.
All right. Go Cougs, Joe.
Go Cougs, Craig. Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.